The living world. The living world includes an incredible number of diverse and fascinating organisms. Living organisms are found everywhere on the earth, like cold mountains, forests, deserts, oceans, lakes, and even in hot springs. You can always distinguish a starfish from a rock. The starfish is living and a rock is non living. So, what is living? To define living, we have to list out some important distinctive characteristics exhibited by living organisms. So, let us explore some of the living characters by which we could differentiate living from non living things. Cellular structure. Every living organism is made up of cells. The cells are the basic structural and functional unit of life. The living organisms may have single cell called unicellular or may have more than one cell called multicellular. The cells may be primitive called prokaryotic cell or it may be highly organized called eukaryotic cell. Presence of protoplasm. Protoplasm is the mixture of small molecules such as ions, amino acids, monosaccharides, water, etc., and macromolecules such as nucleic acids, proteins, lipids, and polysaccharides. It contains the genetic material of a cell. It plays an important role in controlling the activity of the cell. Eukaryotic cell protoplasm contain different cell organelles along with genetic material. It is considered as physical basis of life. Organization. During the evolution of multicellular organisms, some cells become specialized for specific functions to increase efficiency. In most of the animals, the specialized group of cells which are organized into tissues and tissues aggregate to form organs. When two or more organs work together and perform a specific body function, they form an organ system. The organ system forms the entire organism. Maintenance of homeostasis. It is the ability of living organisms to regulate the internal environment to maintain a stable state irrespective of changes in the external environment. For example, thermoregulation in human. Human body produce sweat to remove excess of heat and shiver to overcome extreme cold temperature. Contractile vacuoles present in paramecium maintain osmoregulation. Panting in dogs helps in thermoregulation. Metabolism. It is the sum total of all chemical reactions occurring in the living organism. Metabolism is of two types, namely anabolism and catabolism. Anabolism is the constructive process in which simple chemical substances are converted to complex ones. For example, photosynthesis. Catabolism is the destructive process in which complex substances are converted into simpler ones. For example, cellular respiration, digestion, etc. Metabolism is considered as a defining property of life because without metabolism, living organisms would not exist. Growth and development. Growth is the irreversible increase in the size or in the number of an organism due to cell division. Development is the series of changes involved during the lifespan of an organism. Adaptation. It is the ability of living organism to adjust to their environment. External environment is never constant and is always subjected to the change. So, organisms has to adjust to changing environment for its survival. Inability to adapt may lead to the extinction of an organism. Response to stimuli. The living organisms have the ability to respond to the external stimuli. The external stimuli may be heat, pain, touch, light, etc. The response or sensitivity is brought about by making adjustment in their structure, function, and behavior. Reproduction. It is the ability of an organism to produce the young ones of its own kind. Reproduction occurs either by asexual method or by sexual method. Asexual reproduction is commonly observed in lower organisms in which there is no sexual dimorphism and there is no formation of gametes. For example, in fungi, asexual reproduction occurs through the spores. In yeast, hydra, sponges, etc., asexual reproduction occurs by budding. In planaria, it is by fragmentation and regeneration. In paramecium, euglena, amoeba, bacteria, asexual reproduction occurs by fission process and so on. In unicellular organisms like bacteria, amoeba, etc., reproduction is synonymous with growth, that is, increase in number of organisms. Sexual reproduction is commonly observed in higher organisms where there is clear sexual dimorphism. In sexual reproduction, young ones are formed by the fusion of male and female gametes. The process is called fertilization. The reproduction process cannot be a defining characteristic of living organisms because there are many living organisms which do not reproduce. For example, mule, worker bees, and infertile human couples, etc. During reproduction process, parents transfer their genetic material to their offsprings from generation to generation. Hence, The offsprings always resemble its parents. Locomotion. It is the ability of an organism to move its body from one place to another. In animals, locomotion refers to displacement of entire body, while in plants it refers to the movement of certain body parts like the roots, leaf, stem, flowers rather than the entire body. But locomotion cannot be considered as defining property of life because there are few organisms which are non-motile called sedentary organisms. Lifespan and death. Every organism passes through the life cycle of birth, growth, maturation, and death. Every organism has a limited lifespan. After completing its lifespan, death occurs and life ceases. So, to conclude, by observing a frog sitting on a rock and trying to catch the flies, you can say that the frog is alive and the rock is not. But if you examine both at the molecular level, you will find more similarity among a frog and the rock since both are made up of similar atoms and molecules. They also obey the same fundamental laws of physics. Though life seems relatively easy to recognize, it is not easy to define using a single sentence.